Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And I'm just going to say this right now. Share this out. Please share this across all your social media platforms. I have the inimitable Tim Storey on the show today. You guys are not going to believe this guy. You're not going to believe his story. He's a new friend of mine. I can't even believe I can say that. I'm so honored. So please share this out and stay with us. Let me bring Tim on. Tim, welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Ken, when I watch the intro, I like it because everybody's laughing. You must have a lot of humor in your life.
I like to laugh. I think one of my sayings is, if it's not fun, I'm probably not going to do it.
Yeah, I like that. I think that seeing life through the lens of humor, at least at times, is very helpful, I have found.
I agree. I think some people take life far too serious. I started this show about 4 years ago, and a little more than that, and it's literally been about helping people get unstuck. And and that's I think I made this show for you, like, because that's like your thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. So I like to start with where you were born and raised.
Yes, so I'm from Los Angeles, California, the city of Compton, California. So I mean, like many families, I think that we were trying to find our way up and out. Father, steel worker for Bethlehem Steel. Mother worked at a donut shop, of mixed heritage. My mother's Latin. And but in the beginning, Ken, we had literally 7 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. And as I've told that story around the world, I've heard of like more people in smaller spaces. But when you're raised with 7 energetic people in such a small, cramped, crowded space,
Yeah.
it could really work against you, or in some weird ways, it could work for you. And I think in our case, it worked for us because we kind of bound together and just kept trying to find a way to stretch the boundaries and the barriers. And that's what began to happen in my life. So that was my upbringing, more lower income. There was never talk about college or anything like that. But as I went on, I started to meet some people that started making me think bigger.
I've heard the story, of something pretty tragic that occurred when you were 10 years old. Would you care to, kind of touch on that? And
Yes, and thanks for knowing about the story. So, I think, Ken, the interesting thing about life is that right when you think you're doing okay, we had moved from that particular city, and we had now moved to a 3-bedroom house, which was like a celebration. We'd been there for only 1 year, and my father went to get my mother food at a restaurant. This is the day before where you can do DoorDash and these other Uber Eats, and they bring it to your house. So he went to get food from my mother at a restaurant, and he's just going through a green light, and a man runs a red light, hits him, and takes his life. And, bless the man's heart. He later came to our house and apologized and was just not paying attention. And so we lost my dad. And part of the challenge of that is that if you look at life in a biblical standpoint, the man of the house if he's a good man, should be guiding his children, guarding his children, and governing his children. To guide, to guard, to govern. Now, you take that out, and my mother didn't really have that skill set.
Right.
She was not really good at guiding. She was good enough at guarding, but she didn't know how to govern or administrate. And it left a big vacuum in our house that took years to come back from.
And you were the youngest of how many siblings?
So 5 kids. So
Five.
three sisters that were all like 8 years older than me, 7 years older, 6 years older, then a brother that was 3 years older.
Okay.
And so I was the youngest of the children. And I think that it was strange. When my father died, Ken, all the coping mechanisms were different. I didn't see one sibling cope the same way. One got married early, my older sister. My other sister, who is very artsy, almost kind of hippie, a hippie from Compton. She used to listen to James Taylor and Carole King. I was like, what is this? And then my other sister became a model, and she moved out. And then my brother just went missing in action. A very handsome guy, very nice guy. Just started hanging out with his friends, was always with his friends. So it was strange. I was now pretty much left alone with my mother in that house, which was a little bit cold and awkward.
What was it? I mean, you go from, I'm assuming your father was a major part of the breadwinning in the house. So what, I mean, how did that financial dynamic, because the reason I ask this is I'm always curious. You know, I was raised in a very poor family and had to start working young. Like, where was the shift? Because I know you had to take on some financial responsibility at some point, right?
Yes. Yeah. So what happens, Ken, this is so interesting, is that my father quietly made some good steps. And what happened is we later found out that there was a man that worked at Bethlehem Steel that said to my father, whose name was Anthony Storey, did you know you can get this type of life insurance? And did you know that you can get this kind of insurance that if you were to pass, they'll pay off your house? He didn't know this stuff. We later find this out in life. So we went from struggling, trying to make our way up, and then the next thing you know, our house was paid off.
Wow.
And the next thing you know, there was this insurance money that was coming in. So my mother didn't dialogue with us on why we were seeming to find our way, interesting, in a better way. Because I started noticing, like, wow, we just got a new couch. And now my mother's saying you can buy those Little League baseball cleats instead of wear your brother's. So it wasn't like from 0 to 8, but it was like from 3 to 5.
Right.
But good on my dad for thinking about those things, because at that time he must have been only 38 years of age when he was making those choices.
And my wife is on here and she says, what a blessing. It really is a blessing. You know, so you went from, wow, at 10 years old, you had all of that happen. I heard you say that you had a sister that passed away at a couple of years later.
Just like literally 2 years later. And Ken, that was devastating. And I'll tell you why. Because my sister Viola, who is named after one of my mother's friends, like Viola. You don't hear that name much.
Yeah.
There is an actress named Viola Davis. But my sister Viola was so great to me. And she passed at only 20. But she's the one that taught me art. She was very good at acrylic painting, water painting. And so even when I was like 9, 10, 11, 12, she would invite me in a room and we would paint, and she was the hippie. So again,
Yeah.
we were listening to Carole King and James Taylor, and we're minorities.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about life interruptions, again, and to me, a life interruption, I write about this in my new book, The Miracle Mentality, is that you can just be minding your own business and people have life interruptions every year of their life. It could be they find out they have lupus, they find out that there's challenges in one of their children that they didn't know about, or, we have a worldwide pandemic.
Yeah.
And this life interruption was in the form of her and her two good friends that were sisters went to San Francisco to go visit these two sisters' brothers. They're all Christians. They're happy. They're pretty girls. And the one girl thinks that there's an off ramp, but it's so foggy up in San Francisco, and literally goes off this freeway down a cliff. And so my sister passes, the other two women just get bruised, and they lived, and thank God they lived. But I tell you, that was a tough one because I was just getting over my father's thing, and man, I lost part of my soul because my sister was so kind to me, and I needed that because my mother's a little tougher, and my sister Viola was very kind to me.
Wow. I can't even imagine. So, I one another very favorite quote of mine is pain is the predecessor of all wisdom. And
Yes.
here you are at 12 years old. Hey, look who's watching with us right now. James Barber, the one and only.
The one and only. And we were talking so many great things about him.
Yeah.
And we were both saying about you, James, that out of all the entertainers I know, I mean, literally one of the best at all times. And I was just listening to his music this morning.
Were you really?
Literally this morning. I told him a few weeks ago, I listened to him probably every 4 days. Yeah.
Wow. Well, he's one of my dearest friends in the world too. He's who connected you and I. So thank you, James. You're amazing. So at 12 years old, you're being how do I put it? You're being given huge doses of wisdom against your will, but lots of pain.
A lot of challenges that's going to cause me to have to do what you just said, and what's I see there on your podcast, break through walls.
Yeah.
So what happened, because you can imagine, we already had walls.
Yeah.
Which would have been like the way we were raised, lower income, father 10th grade education, 6th grade, mother 6th grade education. So now, Ken, as you know, because you teach this, is that the walls can actually start getting higher. So, and I think that what happens is that most people become intimidated and frustrated when the walls go higher.
Yep.
Intimidated, frustrated, and then they begin to freeze in the frustration.
What happened with you? How were your teenage years? Did you take the path I took and get arrested?
No, but I cannot picture you as one who got arrested.
12 years old, Tim, first time. Anyway, we won't go there, but like, what happened with your life? Cause I know you see it, like, we talked about somebody else close to you in your life that, made the news, and other people that, like a lot of people take, you talk about going left, like you talk, right? So like, where did you go at 12 years old? All of this pain is thwarted up on you. What happened?
Well, because you're so good at doing your homework, let's go there for a second. I created a message that went around the world. I probably spoke it in 30 countries, that sometimes you have to go left before you get right. And I see this in so many people. Like, let's take Charlie Sheen, because I'll mention some people that don't mind me talking about him. It's so easy for people to look at Charlie and just go, "Oh, what a mess! What a mess! What a mess!" No, not necessarily. Don't forget Platoon.
Right.
Don't forget Wall Street with Michael Douglas.
Yep.
Don't forget 2.5 Men. That guy made history with that show. And Charlie is one of my great friends. And he really adheres to this idea of, sometimes you have to go left to get right. In fact, Kanye West has a new song on his last album that's from my conversations with him about you have to sometimes go left to get right. And I think that my going left in the area of people dying, going left in feeling and knowing that we were lower income, made me want to get right. Now I did not know how to get right. So there's 3 ways you get right. Number 1 is education. Number 2 is conversation. Number 3 is observation. So my 6th grade teacher, Mr. Probert, started really challenging me, and he actually called me brilliant. He said, "Tim, I think you are brilliant, and I'm going to bring the brilliance out of you." Can you imagine that a Caucasian teacher talking to an inner city kid would say, "I brand you brilliant"? But I'm proud of myself that I did not push away what he said about me. I did my best to embrace it. Okay. Wow. So that was education. Conversation, Ken, is what we're doing now. That's why I'm so glad you're doing this podcast, because I think sometimes people are one great conversation away from a better life.
Amen.
Okay. The 3rd is observation. And we have to find people that we relate to, and we relate to their story, we relate to their pain, we relate to their skill set, and we kind of say, wow, if they could do it, maybe I could do it. If they could do it, I could do it.
Totally agree. Totally agree. By the way, there's so many things, and I know we don't have all day. I wish we did, but because I know that you're the pastor of a church.
Yeah.
I actually texted the pastor of our church this morning and got into a long conversation saying, "Dude, you got to get on here and watch today." And of course he knows who you are. So in your teenage years, did you find yourself then focusing on those 3 things? I mean, were you intentional about that?
Very, very much so, because I saw a lot of people who did not walk lives with any sense of purpose. And I have this saying that if you don't do something with life, life will do something with you. So I was close enough to my uncles to see their life spiraling. I was close enough to friends that we grew up with and cousins and saw their life spiraling. And Ken, I didn't want that for myself. And I felt also a responsibility to be there for my mother. Yeah. And so I really got very intentional about getting my way up and out. I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it, but I was very intentional.
That is incredible. So did you graduate high school?
Yeah. So I graduated high school. I go on to seminary. I continue to go on to seminary. I get a doctorate in world religion.
What?
Yeah. And why get a doctorate in world religion? Wow. I'm taking about 7 years worth of classes on counseling, therapy, crisis counseling, family counseling, and not to head towards a master's in that, but just because I was interested. Little did I know that through the seminary, because I wanted to be a humanitarian. Yeah. I was very influenced by Nelson Mandela and Mother Teresa. So now I've been to 77 countries, helping people, speaking. I'll be in Switzerland in just 5 days, and then I'll be in Italy, 4 days after that, doing the same type of work. Wow. And so that's a beautiful thing about God. There's actually a scripture that says, "For God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that you ask or even imagine. So to think that I would go from just my sixth grade teacher saying, I think you're smart, to then finding a plan for my life and then ending up where I am right now and talking to you is the grace of God, but it's also me listening to direction.
And taking the action. I think that I mean, I'm not educating you. I'm just stating a point. But
Yeah.
you know, I've carried with me when I was this 30 years ago. A pastor of a church gave me, and it's tattered. I carried it in my wallet even when I was
Yeah.
homeless. I carry this, and there's a dollar bill stapled to the back of it that used to be brand new, and it's Malachi 3. And it was, and I never spent that dollar, even when I didn't have a dollar. I'd never spent it. I'm like, no, I feel like that would be sacrilegious. But like I you know, I think that people need to learn, and this is what you live your life by. I just know it. I've seen so many videos of you, and
Yeah.
you live your life to give to others.
Yeah, I do. And so I think the reality is like I've been fortunate, and James Barber knows this about me, that when I started helping in Hollywood, I remember Diane Cannon introduced me to people like Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau.
Wow.
I later became great friends with James Caan, who just passed in the last couple of months. In fact, I was so close to James Caan, I did his former wife's funeral just like maybe 7 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
But I became very close with Charlton Heston. I would have amazing dinners with Tony Curtis. And Lee Iacocca was my mentor in business. So, I mean, what young inner city kid gets these kind of situations starting in my late 20s?
Wow.
And I'll never forget what Lee Iacocca said to me. And for those that don't know who he is, he was like a Jeff Bezos of his day.
Yeah.
And he said to me, Tim, God would never have allowed you this front row seat to this many iconic minds unless he was going to do something with you and through what you're learning. And I'm going to tell you something, Ken. I never thought, oh, I get to get close to them because I'm going to be them. No, I thought I'm going to get close to them. I'm going to really learn from them. And then someday I'm going to pass it on. And that's what I've been able to do. I've been able to pass on a lot of amazing secrets from people that definitely had secret sauce.
This may quickly be becoming one of my favorite interviews. I think that so you got your doctorate in
world religion.
I keep wanting to say theology, world religion.
Yeah.
And you left there and where did you go from there? Did you start your own church?
No, I go there and I become like Forrest Gump. It's like while I'm in seminary, I had created a inspirational, motivational plan for inner city kids. So even my junior year of seminary, I was going throughout various inner cities, speaking on thinking big in small places and the power of a dream. Mm-hmm. And it so happened that a football player by the name of Reggie White, who played for the Philadelphia Eagles at the time, and then goes on to Green Bay Packers, he saw me speak one place and he says, listen, I have money and you have an amazing gift. I'm going to help. He started placing me in the NFL, speaking in all these chapels. Wow. And these NFL players started funding my nonprofit, which became the Story Dreams Foundation. So I was going to all these inner city places. And as a very young man, I created something with another group of people called Hope for LA. And I got the, at that time, it was the Oakland Raiders football team. Now it's Las Vegas Raiders. I got the Raiders involved. I got movie stars involved. I started bringing people in, and it just became this gigantic movement in Los Angeles. And then I started doing this in inner cities around the world, including places like Soweto, South Africa, Manila, the Philippines. Yeah.
And what is the primary message you're carrying? What are you bringing to these kids?
Yeah, I think the primary message was one. I worked out with a psychology teacher who at that point was at USC, named Dr. Helen Mendez, and we created this system that in order to get out of a setback, number one, you have to become awake. Number two, you have to take inventory. And I think that many times when you're in pain, you don't want to take inventory. Mm-hmm. Because taking inventory, if you have a stack of bills, means you got to look through all of them.
Yeah. Who wants to do that? That's boring.
You see? So you become awake. Secondly, take inventory. And then a lot of my strength is on the power of partnership. I really believe this thing, because I think people say it too quickly. They'll say like, you are the sum of the friends that are closest to you. But this is so real. You could become awake, take inventory, but you have to partner with the right people, but people with a similar mindset and people with similar motives. And that's why I'm glad when you mentioned who some of your friends are, including James Barber, because I know James has a very strong mindset and really good motives.
Yeah.
But so you just quickly, you become awake, take inventory, partner with the right people. And then here's the key. You have to have the right principles. And so I'm really into this kind of Stephen Covey way of teaching of the core principles. So it's a core principles in which I live by. And I think those are the things that keep me grounded, keep me realistic. I don't have a messiah's complex. I just know I'm one of about 8 billion people. And so I just hope to do the plan I'm supposed to do on this planet.
I'd say you're on the right path, I think. So let me ask you, you said it maybe 3 times. I know at least twice. You have to become awake. And
Yes.
There's a wonderful book Anthony DeMello wrote about called Awareness. And he says that throughout the book, wake up, wake up, wake up. Can you define that for me, for the audience? Like, what does it mean to become awake?
Yeah. So I probably would like to read his book. So you have to text me later the name of that book. But to me, in the studies that me and Dr. Helen Mendez did on this, is that we believe that when you are asleep, that then you are not awake.
Right.
And this idea of being asleep while you're awake is not good. And so that's kind of how I see it. It's like a person that has to go somewhere and they're driving and they got so much on their mind that they pull up into the driveway and they go, I just drove 30 minutes. I don't even know how I got here. Yeah. So people are sleep driving. They are sleep walking through a marriage, and it could be 10 years of sleepwalking through the marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're sleep parenting. They're not awake. They're at the kid's soccer game and they're so distracted that they didn't see that the kid scored the first goal. So this idea of awake is to be fully present, fully feeling, fully alive. Love that you are alive in your awakeness.
So you talk about and forgive me if I don't get this 100% correct, but you talk about working your land.
One of my favorite things to talk about.
Yeah. And it's one of my favorite things to hear you talk about. Mm-hmm. So I have to ask, when you say working your land, what does that mean? And I may even dig a little deep on this with you if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I would like to. Okay, so here's what I think. I think that what the media presents us since we're little kids is what I would consider the harvest of something. Like you're a little kid and you start seeing around November these commercials for Christmas presents. So it might be a bicycle, it might be a toy, it might be a Sony PlayStation. I would consider that the harvest. Okay. And then we become adults and we're like, okay, what's your major in college? What are you going to become? And then that becomes the harvest. So let's take someone like James, who's an amazing actor. So he ends up about 9 times in different Broadway shows. So that would be the harvest. And people would say, well, if he could do it, I could do it. Well, not necessarily so. No. Because to get a harvest, you first have to plow the ground. And I was just with a bunch of farmers last week in Texas talking through this again.
Wow.
So you have to plow the ground. So, before you become this person that has this amazing harvest, you might have to work at a shoe store. You might have to be a dishwasher, right?
Yeah.
You might have to work odd jobs, but I'm okay with that because that's working your land. So you're plowing the ground. But here's the key, Ken. You got to plant the right seed. I think that the right seed is in your discipline, your education. It's in your attitude. It's in your kindness. So every day I try to teach people to plant good seed because today's decisions are tomorrow's realities.
Wow.
And I promise you, I see this. So even in Robert Downey Jr. and working with Robert, the idea is when he was feeling overwhelmed, I said, okay, Robert, you got a bag of positive seeds on the right, negative seeds on the left. Because you're going through so much, it'd be easier to do the negative seeds and say negative words, have negative thoughts, have more negative actions, but you're going to reap what you sow.
Yeah.
So you plow, you plant, almost done. You water. Water's repetition. Ken, this is where I lose people. Most people want to do things a couple of times and then get the effects.
Yep.
Like I joined the gym and they go like once a month. Okay.
Have you been following me or?
I have. So you got to plow, you got to plant, you got to water.
Yep.
And then the beautiful thing is that then payday is on its way. It is the law of the harvest. So anybody that I've ever talked to, that beautiful things have happened. I remember talking to Justin Timberlake before he was Justin Timberlake, and I was telling him about the law of the harvest. And now to see him as an older guy, and he's a great businessman. He became an actor. He's a singer. He's doing so many different projects. So no matter younger people, older people, they follow this law of the harvest. And the beautiful thing about the law of the harvest, and I'll end with this part, is you just never know how big your harvest can become.
Right.
The harvest that I have, I did not see this coming. Please.
So I and this is something that I don't put it like that. I will reference you for the rest of my life from this day forward. But people, I had John Lee Dumas on the show, who, as you know, has one of the top podcasts in the world all the time. And he said, how many of these have you done? At the time, I said, I have 320 and I'm at almost 500 now. And he said, dude, that puts you in the top 1% in the world. Did you know that? And I'm like, shut up. No, it doesn't. I didn't I'm just doing my thing, bro. And he's like, dude, people give up before they hit 50 on average.
Wow.
50 episodes. And so I think about that, Tim. I think how many people give up before, it's the 3 feet from gold thing. How many people give up and this isn't working, I'm going to go over here and do this?
I would say most, because I think that's where the power partnership comes in. where we can help each other, Ken, because we all have blind spots.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the more I hear about these stories about, like, I know the guys from Journey. So Steve Perry, I've known for probably 25 years.
Wow.
And there were so many times that they were just going to quit. I was just with Smokey Robinson 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
For 2 hours. He's like my brother. And I've known Smokey about 25 years as well. And he was telling me how many times Motown almost went down.
Wow.
And if that was the case, you would not have heard of Stevie Wonder the same. He still would have done well, but not the same, because he needed Berry Gordy.
Yeah.
Marvin Gaye, Smokey Robinson, Diana Ross and Supremes, the Jackson 5 all came out of a place that almost went down.
Wow. Along your journey, how many times did you almost give up?
I would say the biggest would be divorce, because I was like the good kid. In seminary, I was so devoted to learn, that I didn't date, and that I married into this amazing family where the dad, my father-in-law, was an advisor to 2 of the Bush presidents on urban affairs.
Wow.
So I marry into this amazing family, to a wife that ends up getting her doctorate and becomes a college professor, and then the marriage just does not work. We were from 2 different worlds. She's very quiet. My life had more volume to it. She didn't really like the entertainer thing I was doing, and it was just 2 people that were different, and it lasted 11 years. I think that I knew it was going to be painful, but I didn't know it was going to be that painful. And in full disclosure, Ken, I was the first time I ever heard negative things about me. In high school, I was liked for sense of humor, for athleticism, optimism. And then all of a sudden I was reading things on this thing they called the internet. And it was like, yeah, he's great, but he left his family to make it big in Hollywood. And that was the first time I'd ever read negative things about me.
Wow.
And that was so difficult, and the shame of why could I not make this work? So I say this now because I'm mostly healed. That was so many years ago, about 20 years ago.
Wow.
But that was very, very painful. It's painful to feel like you've let your children down. I felt a lot that I let my father-in-law down, and I didn't like that. So those were things that I had to continue to work through.
So no matter where you are in your journey, you have challenges. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah, and I'm okay with them, because I feel that, sometimes in life we walk with a slight limp, and I think that that's one thing that keeps my feet on the ground. Like right now, I have this show that I told you about, that I'm in 90 airports around the world. It never happened to Ellen. It didn't happen to my great friend Oprah, but it did happen to me. I'm in 90 airports of the world. So my friends on a daily basis are taking pictures and going, holy schmoly, you are at the Dallas airport that high. I get them all the time, and from a lot of people that these people would know.
Wow.
So when I see that, and I was just in the New York Post twice within the last month. I was in the New York Daily News. Wow. I'm in all these magazines. I just did, again, ABC Today show, Good Morning America. Fantastic. Good going, Tim. But I still have a limp. And I'm okay with that limp.
Yeah.
Because that limp helps me to remember that I'm a work in progress.
You've said, a couple of times you've talked about inventory, and I think that people miss that part of
Yeah.
the formula to success. You really have to dig in and take inventory. And I love that you talk about that.
Yeah. And Ken, my inventory today is that, like in my mind, I feel very strong. In my spirit, I feel very strong. But I'm 61, which is very young, because I look at Quincy Jones. He's 89.
Wow.
And he's doing great things. My buddy Barry Gordy's now 91.
Wow.
But I will tell you that, it used to be I could fly all the way to South Africa. I could, this is a true story. This happened before. I arrived at 2, got through customs, and spoke to 13,000 people at 7. That I will not do anymore. No. Nope. Now I get there 2 days before, get through jet lag, drink hot tea.
Yeah, right.
Then I show up at 7.
Wow, that's got to be intense. One of the questions I ask every guest, I have this innate desire to change the world, like to wake people up, to get people to see their true potential. And I know that's your desire. What do you think? And the number one answer to this question is fear. So you have to do better than that. So what do you think is stopping people from 2 things? Number one, real financial success.
Yeah.
And number 2, freedom, happiness. I do think those 2 things are related. I think because I've been broken homeless and I've been wealthy, and broken homeless is not fun.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you one you're going to like that is not going to be fear.
Okay, I'm giving you full screen for this.
Okay, it's going to be that you have to realize that something is attainable. So when my teacher, Mr. Probert, when I was in 6th grade, said, "Tim Storey, I think you're brilliant," that seemed like beyond me. But he said, "This is how you really exercise your brilliance and work harder. I want you to start by reading these kinds of books." And he had me start to read biographies about people like Michelangelo. And as I would read that someone like Michelangelo did so many great things, but yet he had challenges in his life, I said, hey, I have challenges in my life too, but what he did was attainable. If I can help you to understand that this lofty dream you have is attainable, then I tell you what, it just makes it so different. So to know that something is attainable, and it starts small. It starts by crawling, then you stand, then you walk, then you run, which is passion, then you soar. So I break down things to where they're more attainable. Losing 2 pounds. I'm not trying to get you to lose 15. I want to help you lose 2 pounds. I want you to be a little kinder to your wife and children that month, not overnight. Attainable goals build people's faith.
Wow. So powerful. I hope people are taking notes. I'm gonna throw a bunch of money at this on YouTube and promote the heck out of this. So there was a moment, my wife and I have been married coming up on 13 years.
Yes.
And there was a moment when we first met. We started open an office, had a handful of employees. And this one day, this guy that worked for me, this big old dude, interrupts me and, hey, there's a guy out in the parking lot looking in the windows of your SUV. And I'm like, dude, tell him, get the hell out of here. You're bigger than me. What are we doing here, man? And he's like, he has it blocked with his tow truck. I'm like, I'm on the phone. I'm like, I'm going to have to call you back. I watched my car get repossessed in front of all of my employees that day. And And there was a moment, it was a fleeting moment, but there was a moment where I was like, what is the point of being on this planet? This
Yeah.
sucks. I'm humiliated. Are they all going to quit now? And what about the people who are barely hanging on? Maybe their electric's been shut off. They don't know what to do. What do you say to them?
So number one, Ken, that is very humiliating.
Yes.
Because it's almost like I went and got this car and now I can't pay these payments. And these people are saying, you can't pay your payments. And now I can rightfully tow it. And then people saw it. So
yeah,
to me, there's a lot of shame that can come with that. So I'm a firm believer of embracing painful moments and not just pushing them away. So if I was life coaching Ken at that time, I would say, let's feel it. Let's feel that. What did that feel like? Tim, it was embarrassing. It was shameful. I felt like a loser. I couldn't pay my bills. I want you to feel that for a while.
Yeah.
And you know that because we talked about friends of ours that are working through addiction.
Yeah.
You sometimes have to feel that crap for a while and know that it doesn't feel good. And then you become sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Amen.
Most people change when they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. I promise you. Yep. You got to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's where I am able to really turn the light switch on people and say, I don't know, maybe you like getting punched some more. Maybe you want 3 more years of being hit by Mike Tyson. But to me, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I decided to do my Tim Storey steps, become awake, take inventory, partner with the right people, find the right principles. When you find the right principles, then you find the right plan. And so, yes, you got to get tired of being tired and then decide to rise back up.
I know we have to wrap up because you have another commitment. So I want to say, number one, I'm so grateful that you came on today. I have your website going across the bottom. Tell everybody what you're up to now, how they can follow you, connect with you, hire you to coach them, all of the things.
I think 2 things I'll say to you quickly is that I'm an executive life coach for the #1 AI company in the world. That takes a lot of my time, and then I continue to coach people in entertainment. But if you feel like I could really help you, go to timstorey.com, and thanks for putting that across.
Yeah.
And we do these 1-hour sessions, and it does cost because you should invest in yourself. And I give you homework to do before we dialogue. It'll change your life. It'll shake you up in such a beautiful way. The other thing is, and James Barber helped me with this with a commercial, I'm very good at helping people to become better communicators. And whether you're selling real estate, whether you're in sales, whether you are speaking as a school teacher or speaking from any stage. So I've been working on a project for 20 years called Mastering the Stage. With great acting coaches, voice coaches. So I have a whole program called How to Master the Stage. And a lot of people are going through that. And I love doing that. So 2 things I'll talk about today. One is life coaching one-on-one with me. That's all at timstorey.com. You should go there quick. And then the Mastering the Stage. But Ken, let me say this as we're about to end. You are fantastic. I like your energy, your wit. Great questions today. Great questions. And you tell us, reach out to my guy, Joseph, if you don't mind. Yeah. Tell us how to advertise. So it looks like we're live right now. Is that correct?
We are. Yep, we are.
Okay. Send Joseph everything, and we'll push it real big today as well.
That's so awesome. I'm honored. I want to call you my new friend, one of my new best friends.
We're friends.
Yes.
And I like it. Yeah. So let's do some things together, and let's help some people.
Yeah, let's do it. Tim, I'm going to end this. I'm going to everybody have a wonderful day. Tim, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for being here today. And if you can hang on for one more minute and let me wrap this up and let's chat real fast. We'll see you guys later. Have a great day and go follow Tim Storey everywhere.